Well, I have an incredible story for you. This man rode his motorcycle for 24 years, all over China, looking for his son. His baby had been taken from him when he was only 2 years old, but Guo Gangtang could never forget it, so he kept driving and driving, and then the unthinkable happened. So first, a little background. Guo Gangtang is from China, a huge country, as you know, where thousands of children go missing every year. The Chinese government is the first to admit that it's a national problem and is taking steps to address the problem of children being taken from their parents against their will and sold. It happened to little 2.5-year-old Guo Shunsang. He was playing in front of his house when a couple discovered him. They had been dating for some time and had devised a plan to find a child or take him away and then sell him. What a terrible plan. In large part, the practice has been spurred by China's one-child policy, which until 2015 allowed parents to have only one child. This, combined with a preference for boys, has resulted in a huge black market for male newborns, with couples paying a lot to have a boy. Without an adequate pension system, parents often expect their children to take care of them in their old age. This is not to say that girls are not sold and bought, but they often end up as servants or as brides for an only son. And so the vicious cycle continues, and children continue to disappear. It is not only in China that human trafficking has been one of the most terrible human rights violations in the world. But I am not here to depress you. Actually, this story is not just full of pain, although it may seem so. The two suspects in the story, a woman surnamed Tan and her boyfriend named Ju, had it all planned. She would pick up the child and take him to the bus station where her partner would be waiting for her, ready to take them both on the intercity bus. She picked up little Guo and took him away at a time when neither of his parents were looking. Within moments, they were on the bus with little Guo, who did not know what was going on, but certainly sensed that something was wrong. The experience must have been terrifying for him. Arriving in the next town, the couple soon found buyers and sold little Guo. They would now raise him as their own, and since the boy was too young to realize that he had been taken, he would not even remember that his early life had been different. When Guo Shunsang's father realized that his son was not where he had left him, panic set in, and he began to search for him. He went around the house, the neighborhood, and asked everyone if they had seen his little boy. He called the police, who quickly realized what had happened and told Mr. Gangtang that the child was probably already far away and out of their jurisdiction. It happened all the time, and most children were never found. Guo Gangtang and his wife, San Wang, were inconsolable. Their little boy had been the center of their universe, and they could not let him go. They felt so helpless, especially when they learned that they were not the only parents to whom this had happened. They realized that looking for a child in a country of 1.3 billion people is like looking for a needle in a haystack, but they still couldn't let it go. After a few months, the police gave up the search for their son, and Guo set out to keep looking. Seriously, if you look up the word persistence in the dictionary, you might find a portrait of this father. Like a bulldog, he stuck to the case and vowed he would find his son. His wife was suspicious and didn't like where this was going, but she also knew that without any effort on his part, they would have to give up their little boy. With a heavy heart, she watched her husband pack up some belongings and walk away, beckoning him until he reached the end of his street. And so began his epic journey, which would last 24 years and take him more than 500,000 kilometers across China. He had no concrete plan, but to raise awareness, he printed large banners to hang on the back of his motorcycle and printed leaflets to hand out to people. The banners showed a huge picture of his young son and explained the reasons for his trip. They read, "Son, where are you? Daddy is looking for you to come home." Perhaps it is hard to imagine what Guo must have gone through, but the pain and loss were what kept him going. He had a map and started crossing out the towns and cities he visited and kept asking everyone. Sometimes he had a lead and followed the information in hopes of finding his son, but he always ended up empty-handed and had to start over. For a couple of days, this seemed doable. For a couple of weeks, maybe. But to go on for months and years and decades is amazing. Along the way, Guo went through more than 10 motorcycles and had his share of traffic accidents. He also spent all the money he had saved and often slept on the street or under bridges. He did odd jobs to earn some money or begged for money to help his household. He was robbed several times, broke a few bones, and often hit rock bottom, needing to go home. He gave everything he had in this quest, but he never gave up, because every time he returned home, he became restless and knew he was the only one who could bring his son back. So he would set out again and keep searching for his son. But little by little, Guo's incredible journey began to reach the masses and touched the hearts of many people. In a way, his search became a symbol for all the children who had disappeared and continued to disappear. In 2015, when Guo himself was still on the road and still driving with his flags looking for his son, now in his 20s, a film producer became interested in the story. A movie called Lost and Love was made, starring Chinese superstar Andy Lau as the father. With all the attention he was getting, Guo turned his attention to the heartbreaking problem of abducted children in China. With his search efforts, experience, and expertise, he was able to find other missing children. Parents who had suffered the same fate as him came to him for help, and in some cases, he was able to find the child. He created a website and a couple of years later, a non-profit organization so that he could help more parents and spread the word about his own cause. Thanks to his efforts, more and more children came home, and Guo Gangtang became a national celebrity. But unfortunately, his own son was still missing, so he continued to ride his motorcycle around China. Technologies had also caught up, and the Chinese police had begun to create a DNA database so that private parents could be linked to potentially missing children. Guo and his wife were more than happy to have blood drawn to add to the data in the hope of finding a match. Penalties for child trafficking were also stiffened, and as the government was softening enforcement of the one-child policy, fewer children were taken. But still, there was no trace of the child. Until one day, the unthinkable happened. It had been 24 years since Guo first went out on a motorcycle. 24 years where most people would have given up long ago, and where no one gave them any hope of finding their son, who had already turned 26. They received a message from the police through their colleagues in the neighboring province. They had received a tip about a possible match. A DNA test confirmed the unbelievable. This young man was indeed their son. Guo Shunseng, kidnapped so many years ago, had grown up with his new parents and had never been told he was adopted. As much as the news came as a shock to his birth parents, can you imagine what it must feel like to suddenly find out that your whole life has been a lie? It's like having your world turned upside down. It took a while for everyone involved to come to terms with the facts, but of course, the reunion was now inevitable. Guo Gangtang's biggest dream, and the reason he had searched for 24 years, had come true, and he had found his son. The moment when he and his wife were reunited with their son for the first time since he was taken away was heartbreaking and heartwarming at the same time. They cried and embraced him with fervor. If you are not affected by this, you must be made of stone. The event made headlines around the world and gave goosebumps to many. No one had seen it coming, except perhaps Guo Gangtang himself, who never allowed himself to lose hope. Peng Sanyuan, the film's director, said that today, Lost and Love finally has a real happy ending, and it is amazing that after so many years and miles, Guo Gangtang has found his son. Hit the like button if you are amazed too, and let me know in the comments what you would do if your son disappeared someday. See you soon!